collaboration with the Cyprus Mail. This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
Coming up on the programme this week, as intensive Cyprus reunification negotiations continue, MPs join demonstrators to threaten a Greek Cypriot doing trade with a Turkish Cypriot.
This is trade which has been legal since 2004. It's an EU regulation. One question is, how come nobody knows that? How come MPs don't know that? But more specifically, how come this happens now? You know, you've got to ask questions like that, I think.
The winning teams of the 2016 Climate Launchpad prepare for the European finals in Estonia.
And the best 10 of them will join the Climate Kick Accelerator, which is the biggest accelerator in Europe, and each one of them will get up to 100,000 euros of equity, basically equity-free seed capital, so that they can progress with their ideas.
And Cyprus gets its own Maritime Academy.
It does offer the opportunity for a number of young people to follow this profession, a profession which is both rewarding financially, but also it's rewarding from the point of view of quality of work.
The two leaders in Cyprus for the last couple of weeks have been intensifying the talks for a Cyprus solution. We're expecting, we hope, a joint statement on September the 14th. But while this has been going on, so have other things. And one that shocked me, and I think many other people in Cyprus, was a demonstration in Achna near Decalia about a week ago, at which some 500 people, including, if you please, 7 members of the Cyprus Parliament, demonstrated outside a warehouse where a Greek Cypriot was holding potatoes that he had quite legally bought from a Turkish Cypriot for re-export. Now, what sort of message does that send when we're hoping for some sort of solution to the Cyprus problem? Joining me on the programme this week is Fiona Mullen, who is from Sapienta Economics. She's been following not only the negotiations, but the whole Cyprus issue with regard to the economy and many other things for many years. Fiona, what do you make of this? Because there were high hopes, I think, that the two leaders this time, with something like 6 or 8 meetings in the space of a couple of weeks, were really going to crack on and try and come up with something that they could present to Ban Ki-moon.
I think this could be a reflection. One of the things I've been writing in my monthly reports is that as the leaders get closer to a solution, and at the time we're talking, it sounds like they are talking about subjects which they've never talked about before. I think Ida said there's no taboos and so on. But there's still a lot of people out there who don't want a solution. So it does make you think, is it accidental or is it by design that suddenly there's a protest about the Turkish Cypriot potatoes coming to the south? I mean, this is trade which has been legal since 2004. It's an EU regulation. One question is, how come nobody knows that? How come MPs don't know that? But more specifically, how come this happens now? You've got to ask questions like that, I think. I mean, the way I see it is, on the one hand, there's a lack of awareness of what's, I guess you could say it's a failure on the part of politicians if people aren't aware that this is legal. That's number one. Number two is this just one of the signs of what will happen should we come to a referendum? There's going to be we've seen in recent referendum in the UK, dirty trick campaigns all over the place. So people will do anything or everything to undermine the process. Or the third aspect, though, is, does it mean, I think you mentioned that, does it mean people are ready for a solution if there's that many people prepared to go and demonstrate for a few potatoes? Are people ready to do business with each other? Are people ready to live with each other? And that's the more worrying aspect in the end.
All right, it's not just about potatoes, of course. There have been a lot of other things in the news, and one of them is the energy sector, which you're an expert in. And I was a little bit flummoxed by the agreement signed between the government of Cyprus and Egypt last week, because it seems to be an agreement for something that isn't even on the cards for probably 4 or 5 years, if ever.
Yeah, well, there's certainly... I do a lot of number crunching on this, and at least according to my own calculations, but other people are saying similar things. You really need, from where prices are today, they need to more than double for the exports to Egypt to be viable. So, why is the government signing agreements now?
Could it have something to do with the rapport suddenly developing between Israel and Turkey, with the possibility of a pipeline going through Turkey?
Yeah, I think it's difficult to tell. Is it to do with forthcoming presidential elections? Is it to do with... I think the Republic of Cyprus has made a choice. It's partly a foreign policy choice, it's partly an energy policy choice to say, we're going to pursue gas exports come what may, and they've always been very consistent in saying this has nothing to do with the Cyprus problem, even though we know that it affects the atmosphere of the negotiations. So it's partly that sort of insistence on we have our sovereign right and we're going to carry on and do our stuff. But the timing yet, I don't know. I suppose there's two things. So Israel is about to issue 24 licences. We're only going to be issuing 3. The Turks are definitely interested in taking Israeli gas. ENI has found an awful lot of gas in Egypt, so do they even need our gas? So it is. I think it is partly a PR thing of saying, look, we're still in the game here.
And it's a bit strange, isn't it, that we keep insisting, after it seems to have been finally accepted that a pipeline to Greece is really not viable at all, both in sort of geological and in monetary terms. So the only other option would be a pipeline to Turkey, which seems to be an absolute red line for people in certainly the Republic of Cyprus. Mm-hmm. So we keep talking about sending it to Egypt, whether or not they want it, because if the Zohr field comes through, they will have more than enough for themselves and everybody else. Yeah. But what about this European security on energy? For years we were talking about how Cyprus could feed into the European energy grid, and it can't do that, frankly, unless it goes through Turkey, can it?
It could potentially, because I think the general idea, although they're keeping their options open, saying we could send it either to an LNG plant in Egypt or for domestic consumption, I think probably let's say if it ever happens, if overnight gas prices get high enough that it's suddenly viable, they're probably going to want to send it to this Idku LNG plant, because BG is a partner in that, and BG, now Shell, is now a partner in Aphrodite. So that's the obvious. So in that sense, that would actually, let's say, forget the Cyprus problem and let's presume the price is right. That, for me, would be the commercially best option, because you're not then depending on stability in Egypt and will they pay. There's been a lot of payment problems with Egypt and oil and gas companies. If you're just sending it to an LNG plant and exporting it to Europe or wherever, then you don't have to worry so much about how you're going to get paid and so on.
And the role of Turkey in all of this, particularly after the coup in July?
In the whole gas export?
Well, in the whole gas export thing, but also in the Cyprus problem negotiations. I think their foreign minister was in the north of Cyprus last week saying that, in a sense, we need to get on with this and that the Turkish government supports a solution this year. Is that just hot air?
Actually, I think one of the interesting things about Turkey is literally in the last 2 to 3 months, so even before the attempted coup and afterwards, Erdogan has been able to do things which in previous times would have been seen as losing face. So he's made friends again with Russia, he's made friends with Israel, he's even backed away from saying Assad has to go. So that gives me some hope that he can make moves on Cyprus that might never have been possible for Turkey before. And you're getting hints of that here and there about, they're no longer saying no changes to the guarantees, for example. They're even, at least Akinci is saying we want a guarantee system that doesn't make either side feel unsafe. So that gives me some hope that they're not sticking by their old positions, and that therefore that gives you might get something that is acceptable to the Greek Cypriots.
How far do you think this is driven by the fact that the current sort of priority number one for Erdogan seems to be pushing the Kurds back behind the Euphrates? Is he feeling that his border is threatened and therefore that Cyprus is a thorn in his side?
Well, he's got lots of different fronts at the moment, and I think let's take him at his word and say, yes, he wants a solution to the Cyprus problem. Why would he want that? It's because it's one less problem to worry about. His big problem, as far as he's concerned, is the Kurds and the Gulenists. And so if he doesn't have this Cyprus problem that complicates his relations with both the US and the EU, then that's one less thing for him to worry about.
And what about the financial side of helping northern Cyprus?
They've been squeezing the Turkish Cypriots for a while now to basically to behave themselves a bit better on public spending. But in the latest protocol that they signed with Northern Cyprus, they've actually given them more money in order to try and persuade them to reform. So there's this very big document that, I mean, I don't read Turkish, but at face value, just glancing at it, it looked to me like a Troika programme. It had all these boxes with dates when you have to do things by. And I think they're essentially implementing a Troika programme in the north to get them to do these fundamental structural reforms that will ultimately stop them spending far too much money on them.
And of course that, in a sense, would all happen anyway, would it not, if there is a solution to the Cyprus problem? Because once the acquis communautaire is adopted in the north, then it's part of, well, it is part of the EU, but I mean it's got the regulations of the EU, so all of that would have to happen anyway.
Yeah, I mean, well, what the big thing on the public expenditure side is they would be part of this thing called the Stability and Growth Pact, which is very strict about how much you're allowed to spend, how you plan your spending, and so on and so forth. And just by default, the whole of Cyprus will still end up owing a lot of money to the IMF and the European support mechanism, stability mechanism. So that they will have to kind of obey by these new rules anyway. So the more they can prepare beforehand, the better.
Are you hopeful for the outcome of the talks?
I'm more hopeful than I was a couple of months ago. I do this thing every month where I put a percentage likelihood of a solution. It's not terribly scientific, but I dropped it down to 35%, and I'm now up to 40%. If they actually do a joint statement in September and they get to that three-party meeting, I'll put it up to 45, and then if we get to a referendum, I'll get it up to 50. So these are my sort of little benchmarks for where I think it's going. But I think
but 50%, if it's a referendum, is not very hopeful.
No, well then you get to it's a 50-50 chance, and then we'll have to look at opinion polls. Of course, we know that they aren't always right these days. So it's still, they're very close, but there's still a lot. I mean, even, like I say, maybe this potato thing was really actually about trying to undermine Anastasiades in the negotiations. So it does need a lot of courage to go that final mile.
And it needs a lot of information being passed on, of course, to the people in Cyprus who'll be voting if and when a solution proposal is agreed. We've been talking to Fiona Mullen from Sapienta Economics.
Get in touch with the Cyprus News Digest by emailing cyprusnewsdigest@gmail.com.
On Monday night at the Hellenic Bank Centre in Nicosia, it was the finals of the Cyprus 2016 Climate Launchpad. That means that the Cyprus winners have a chance to go to the European finals, and who knows where on from there. Joining us is Alexandros Charalambous from Chrysalis Leap. They organised the Climate Launchpad both in Cyprus and in Greece. So, who won?
Hi, we had some very good ideas this year. We had more than 40 applications, and the best 3 of them are actually focusing on wide, diverse background, let's say, of ideas. One of them has a new patented technology to clean photovoltaics with a thin film of air. So they have their technology, they can put it on any kind of photovoltaic, either a new one or a parabolic one, and with a very gust of air, they clean it. So or you can have it in the middle of the desert and it's always clean. And that increases its efficiency by even 15-20%.
And that, of course, would apply as well here in Cyprus, because, I mean, if you just look at how often you have to go up on the roof to clean the solar water heaters because of all the dust we get in the air here, I suppose it's the same thing.
Exactly. And the good thing about this technology is that it's not only applicable to photovoltaics or solar thermal, it can be on any glass surface. So imagine now in Dubai, a 100-story building all are made out of glass, where you have this technology and it's always clean. So you don't need to have personnel to clean it every month or every week.
You'd be better off, though, if architects built different style buildings, not using
not
glass.
Always glass.
Yeah, especially in a climate like that.
Yes.
What about the other winners?
The other idea, it's called HOT. Basically, what they have is a smart sensor for your domestic hot water heater. So one of the problems, not so much in Cyprus because you have lots of sun, so it's always hot to have a shower, is that people don't know when they have hot water, so they usually turn it on, let's say in the UK, 2 hours before they have a shower, and then it's, they have the shower. Or if they forget about it, they should have a cold shower. With this technology, though, the system learns when you want to have a shower, and it preheats the water just in time for you to have a shower. So you basically don't need to remember anything. It's like Nest for your heaters that they have in the US. It does the same thing for your hot water.
But it means you have to take a shower at the same time each day.
It learns, so they know that on weekdays this is about approximately the time you have a shower. They know the system will know that you're on holiday, so it won't heat up your water because they've
How
seen.
will it know you're on holiday?
From the GPS, if you have it connected on your mobile, it knows that you're not in the area, you're in another city, so there's no point heating on the water. And they have a demo, a pilot. They installed it in Cyprus, and hopefully by next year they want to market it and take it out in the market.
Now, installing it in Cyprus, it means, though, switching on a form of water heating, because as you said, our water, even in the winter here, tends to be hot from even the cold tap if we've had a sunny day.
Exactly, and that's why they only use Cyprus as a test case to try the technology out. But their market is not Cyprus, and this is one of the things we teach them during the Climate Launchpad competition. Is not only the technology part of your idea, but where are you going to market it? Where is the customer pain? In Cyprus, as you said, you don't care, it's always hot, so why do I need to program it? But in Ireland, the cost of electricity is the highest in Europe, so they have a pain, and they pay a lot for the electricity to heat up their water, and that's why they decided they were going to market it in Ireland.
And the third one?
The third technology, basically it's more technology related. It's about nanocomposites. So it's a combination of technology and material, and they change the structure of carbon fibers. So when you're going to make a new structure, instead of steel, now they use carbon fibers. With their technology, they can get 2 times the strength at the fraction of the cost that carbon fibers cost. So the example they gave at the competition is that if all the aeroplanes changed from carbon fibers to their carbon fibers with these nanoparticles, it's like taking more than 1,000 aeroplanes off the skies every day in the energy savings, just because of the decrease in the increase in the strength and the decrease in the weight of this new material.
Okay, so what happens now to those 3 winners?
They go to Estonia in the beginning of October, and they're going to compete with the best 3 ideas from another 30 countries. It's actually the biggest clean tech competition in the world. So these 90 startups will compete in Estonia, and the best 10 of them will join the Climate Kick Accelerator, which is the biggest accelerator in Europe, and each one of them will get up to 100,000 euros of equity, basically equity-free seed capital, so that they can progress with their ideas. But on top of that, they get 18 months of schooling, where they can attend master classes, trainings, they can go to boot camps, they can go to any kind of trade show to promote their ideas and basically learn more.
And for people who haven't heard about this before, because we have talked about it, I think ever since certainly it's been going on in Cyprus, a little bit about the previous winners who achieved some sort of angel funding.
Yes.
Have you got any success stories to share with us?
Yes, and actually a success story doesn't mean winning the competition. For example, 2 of the teams from last year, one from Greece and one from Cyprus, they won the national finals, but they didn't win the European ones. One of them from Cyprus is doing a hydrogen production and already had 2 clients in Cyprus and installed it, so it's already in the market. And the idea in Greece was to grow mushrooms on the waste from coffee shops. And they didn't win, but they stuck with it, and they formed a new company with some partners from the UK. They have a production factory now in the UK, and they have about 10 or 20 restaurants that they buy mushrooms off them, and they're in a good start. And they didn't win the competition, so just the journey and learning from it, you have the tools to make it happen, regardless if you're going to win or not.
Now, obviously, this year's competition is all but done and dusted. What about people who may want to enter next year's competition? Because this technical stuff takes a lot of planning and it's a lot of progress that needs to be made. And I think that you do, at the beginning of the year, accept sort of applications from people who want to go to your boot camps to give them a better start in this competition.
Yes, there are two things. One is the Climate Launchpad, the competition, which we announce every March. And if you have an idea that's connected with the environment and protecting the environment, then you can apply, and if selected, you attend the boot camps and the master classes and the training. It's usually about March that we announce everything. But what's different us from this year is that Cyprus, and it's a partnership between the Cyprus University of Technology, Chrysalis Leap, and the Cyprus Energy Agency, they were selected to become one of the 6 new regions of the Climate Kick network. And that means that we now have the resources to do a lot more stuff than just this Climate Launchpad competition. For example, for this year, we have 4 ideation events. So for example, on the 28th of October, we have Climathon in Limassol. So if you have any ideas on how to solve the problem with we saw in the summer about the water quality in the seafront in Limassol. So if anyone has any idea of how to solve this, they come to this one-day event, they learn, and if they have a good idea, they get some funding as well. We have other events about the future of transport in Nicosia. And one of the biggest events we're going to have is called the Stage 2 Accelerator, where teams that already participate in Climate Launchpad, they can get 15,000 euros in Cyprus to progress with their ideas. Next summer, we're going to have a summer school where 50 master and PhD students from around Europe and Cyprus will attend a 5-week course on climate change. It's going to be a lot bigger than just a competition, and we're just starting it up now.
So where can people find out more?
So far, because this is quite new, we just announced it yesterday at the event, so there's no website yet. But if they follow the chrysalisleap.com website, all the news will be announced through there as well.
And you have a Facebook page?
Of course, yes. Chrysalis Leap on Twitter, Facebook, the same.
That's Alexandros Charalambous from Chrysalis Leap, talking about great new ideas in the Climate Launchpad.
This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Charalambous.
Cyprus now has its first Maritime Academy, an initiative of the University of Nicosia. It received high praise from Transport Minister Marios Dimitriadis at the launch recently. He said the initiative had the active support of the government and that his ministry had approved a €330,000 financial support scheme for training. Who are you going to be training, or rather, who is the academy going to be training, and how will this impact on the shipping sector, which I think everybody knows is a huge part and an increasingly important part of the Cyprus economy?
Let me first start by saying that, of course, shipping is very important for the Cyprus economy, contributing directly and indirectly around 7% to our GDP. Now, maritime education has always been one of the big targets of both the government and the industry. We do have in Cyprus a number of courses that have to do with shipping, but what we lack, and this became more obvious during the last 2 years when a number of new companies came to Cyprus, we do lack people with technical experience on the sea. So we don't have a lot of people who actually spend time on the ship. So we do need to bring people from abroad. The University of Nicosia has identified that, and they came up with a number of courses through this new Cyprus Maritime Academy that have to do with merchant officers and maritime engineers And these people, they will actually have to spend at least 1 year on the ship training. So these are the kind of skills we're looking for. And the most important thing is that this effort is done with the cooperation of the private sector, that they do form a large part of the board of directors of the new organization. So this effort has the support of the private sector, of the industry, but it also has the support of the government, because since last year we have introduced a scheme for subsidizing the people who spend time on the sea and being trained, but also we have announced this year an amount that will be given every year for these courses, that they do correspond to this particular need the industry has.
It sounds to me as if, in a sense, we're changing slightly the tack that Cyprus takes when it comes to shipping. As you said at the beginning, we have a lot of people involved in the shipping industry, but they mostly seem to me, from what I understand, to be sort of managerial based. So we're talking now about seafarers, and it sounds a little bit almost like an apprenticeship idea, that young people can start a career that is going to see them all the way through involved in maritime affairs.
I would say it's two things. The first thing is that, as I said, we do have a lack of people who actually spend time on a ship. And usually what is happening, a lot of technical people who work at the offices, they are ex-captains or ex-marine engineers, or they are captains now as well, who actually spend time on the sea, and they have this practical technical experience. We do lack this kind of people in Cyprus, but also if you think about it, we have in the maritime sector in Cyprus, apart from the people who are employed onshore, we have around 55,000 people who are employed offshore. So if you think about it...
So we are a seafaring nation. As an island, it wouldn't make sense not to be, would it?
Yeah, but most of these people, they're non-Cypriot. So there are many big opportunities for Cypriot people to follow this profession. And especially in the times we live in, where there is a significant percentage of young people that are unemployed. So I do believe that this is a very important initiative. It does offer the opportunity for a number of young people to follow this profession, a profession which is both rewarding financially, but also it's rewarding from the point of view of quality of work.
And of course, let's talk about women's role, because there is a separate organisation in Cyprus for women in shipping, and it's got a lot of members. So how would women train in this more hands-on role?
Well, there's nothing that prevents women from becoming merchant officers or marine engineers. And there is already a number of women that are employed in these traditional male professions. I do believe that women can have a significant contribution towards this profession, and of course I would encourage every young lady to follow this profession in the future.
Is there, do you think, a change now in the young people of Cyprus, partly due maybe to things happening in the education system, whereby, as in other countries, particularly in Europe, females are tending to look more towards science and engineering in particular? They seem to make brilliant engineers. We don't seem yet to have that in Cyprus, but is it on the way, do you think?
Well, judging from my generation, women, they have become a huge part of the workforce, and I do believe that all the previous myths, basically, they are going away in the Cyprus society. So yes, I do believe that women will follow any kind of profession they wish, without having these traditional ideas that basically existed in the past. So if I refer to the area of shipping, I can say that there's nothing that prevents women from following this profession.
And finally, how long will these courses take, and how do people access some of these government grants?
This course takes 4 years, and actually when we had the presentation, the CFO, the Chief Financial Officer of the university, basically illustrated that if Cypriot students benefited from all the money that is available for them, it might be that they will be able to finish the course without having to spend any money. So I think this is quite important for somebody who wants to follow this profession.
Particularly in the current recession. That is Transport Minister Marios Dimitriadis talking about our first Maritime Academy in Cyprus at the University of Nicosia. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.